So what's the story about home births? What's the safety of home births? These are just some pictures of scenes of home births. In the left lower corner is Marlies Reinders, midwife researcher whose research I'll talk about in a minute. And this was the birth of her youngest a few years ago now. And you see champagne and happiness, and I think it's a lovely picture. And many of the pictures of home births are lovely like these. You really don't have to orchestrate a lot to get this kind of atmosphere in a picture after a home birth. Unfortunately, our home birth percentage is going down very rapidly. The latest figures we have are from 2009, but I can't imagine that it's not a lot lower now. And what you can see here is all kinds of different countries. The US in pink, purple all the way on the left, where home births disappeared very early on. And a lot of other countries it disappeared too. The United Kingdom is the only one where it's going up a little bit, and that's because the government has a very active policy to turn it around and to give women choices. That's why they're doing it. They're focusing on home births because they want women to have choices. And it's now around 3%, which makes them very proud, but it's still unfortunate that it first went down, and it's really difficult to bring it back up again. And in the Netherlands, it was 29% just a few years ago, and it hovered around 30% for quite a while. But then the latest measurement, it went down to almost 24%. So that's a 5% drop just in 2 years' time, and that's enormous, and we haven't seen that previously. And I can imagine that right now it's lower than the 24% of our latest measurement. And I think that's really unfortunate, because it means that women will have fewer and fewer choices. And there actually are places in the country where home birth is no longer possible, also because hospitals are concentrating their care and the distance becomes too large. So we can really see these options disappearing. So I want to share with you the results of a large study that I was involved in that looked at the safety of home births. We published it in 2009 in the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And the title is at the top, How Safe is Planning a Home Birth? The subtitle was Perinatal Mortality and Morbidity in a Nationwide Cohort. This is worldwide the largest study into the safety of home births that has ever been published. Over 500,000 women who were low risk and who either gave birth at home or with their midwife in hospital. And we compared the outcomes between those two groups. A randomized trial, for those of you who know a little bit about research, would have been ideal, where women basically get selected to either give birth at home or in hospital by the luck of the draw. But no woman in the Netherlands wants to be randomized. It was tried in Maastricht, and in a pilot it seemed like women would actually collaborate. And then by the time it came to randomization, there was one woman who said, okay, I don't care, just put me in a group. And everybody else had already made up their mind. So we can't do that kind of study, but this is second best, and I think it was a really good study. And it's important for you to know that there were 3 midwives, 3 obstetricians, and 2 epidemiologists who together did this study. So it wasn't the midwives trying to prove that their practice was safe. It was a truly multidisciplinary group. What did we find? Our main conclusion was that there's no difference in the chances of babies dying or being admitted to a neonatal intensive care unit, a NICU, between the two groups. So whether women chose to give birth at home or in hospital with their midwife, their chances of losing their baby were incredibly small, 6 per 10,000, but they were equal between the two groups. And that really was what we needed, because until then we hadn't researched this, and it was important that we can put people's minds at rest. Unfortunately, it didn't really have the effect that I think it should have had, but I'm very convinced, and I with that conviction tell you this now, that giving birth in the Netherlands, where we have a supportive system, where we have well-trained midwives, where obstetricians are used to take care of you if you have to be referred, really is safe for your baby. And that's, I know, what many mothers and expectant fathers are really worried about, and rightfully so. Safety is incredibly important. So I think that's really excellent news that we can say that, and I dare to say that today. So I want to conclude with telling you about what constitutes a good birth experience and how can you make sure that you're actually going to have one. How can you make sure that you exercise your right to choose? And why is choosing important? Choice is not because I want you to make the right choice. I want you to choose. And if you choose, you'll have a much better chance of having your best birth experience. And every woman will choose something else. Women who are terrified of the thought of giving birth at home, please don't. You don't have to. Choose what's good for you. And I want to show you a very important study that the midwife who drank the champagne after her birth conducted a few years ago. And I'm co-author on this piece. It's in Birth in 2008. And for those of you who want the reference, I'll happily give it to you during the break. This looked at whether women are unhappy with their birth or happy, and what increases their chances of being happy or unhappy. And I think it also shows you the weakness of our system, because the most important outcome of that study was this. Women who give birth at home have a very small chance of not being happy. And this was 3 years after the birth. She interviewed women and asked them to look back and ask, were you very unhappy or unhappy? And 5% of women who gave birth at home or completed their birth at home said, yes, I'm not happy when I look back. So 95% were happy. Women who started their birth in hospital, either with the midwife and were in the hospital with their midwife, they were unhappy in 13% of cases. So you see the difference between giving birth at home or being taken to hospital with your midwife. Women were much more likely to be unhappy if they were transferred from the care by the midwife to an obstetrician. And I think what happens there is that women really lose control, because often the midwife doesn't come along. And in this, the weakness in our system, this transferal, has an extra weakness in that midwives actually transfer their care. So they'll come with you from the home to the hospital, and then often at the steps of the hospital they'll say, good luck, and I'll check in with you later. And then the woman who's used to getting this one-on-one care with a person she trusts has to be transferred to a new team, often with people she absolutely doesn't know, and women really don't like that. And I think it's important that we realize that that's one of the major difficulties in our system. And now women who've had a cesarean section or instrumental delivery are actually really likely to be unhappy. So I think this is important that we realize this. And I know you all have questions about pain as well. And it's totally understandable, because the pain of childbirth is something that is being spoken about a lot, that we all see in TV programs as something terrible, and it's really difficult to know what you should do about it beforehand, what you can do about it during. Pain is not a simple issue. It's far too simplistic, unfortunately, to say if we take all the pain away, like with an epidural, then women will have a good birth experience. It's not like that. And a high level of pain does by no means constitute a traumatic birth experience. And that's what makes choices so difficult. From the study by Marlies Reinders, it was very clear that pain in itself was not a factor that influenced women's chances of looking back negatively. It was the control over the pain. And that's where control, being in charge, autonomy, and choices come in again. You need to know, as a pregnant woman, that if during your delivery you feel your pain is really getting out of hand, that you can have help, that you can have this epidural, that you can be referred if that's really what you want, or that there are other options that the midwife can help you with. There are lots of ways also in a home birth situation where the pain can be eased. And often it's not about pain, it's about fear of the unknown. I mean, pain is a very complex issue. And most obstetricians see pain as something very dichotomous and very mechanical. A woman is in pain, we need to do something about it, we'll give her an epidural and she'll be happy. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So talk to your caregiver and make sure that you understand why you're afraid of pain, what it is you're afraid of, and make sure you have choices also in how you want to deal with your pain during labor. And many women who've had pain and were able to deal with it well will look back very happily and will be proud of themselves. But being panicked about pain, that's never a good thing, being out of control. So unfortunately, pain is not a very simple issue, and it's something that you need to deal with, and your thoughts about that during the pregnancy. Don't wait until you're in the middle of your birth, then it's much too late to decide what you want and what your choices should be. So I want to wrap up with 7 do's for pregnant women. I think everywhere, but especially in the Netherlands, with our options and our quirks, with the possibility of having your best possible birth experience, but you need to know how to negotiate the system. And first and foremost, and it's great you're here today because it's obvious that's what you want, know the facts, know what's available, know what your choices are. Be really informed and know yourself. Know how you feel most comfortable during your pregnancy and during your birth. And talk about that. So be assertive. Now, the Dutch are assertive themselves. They'll accept your assertiveness. They'll even probably listen better if you tell them very clearly in their face, like what they do, what you want. So communicate your wishes. And I think early is a key word here. Don't wait until you're in the middle of giving birth. Do it early. And I think a birth plan is a wonderful idea. It makes you think about what's important for you and your partner. I mean, make sure that you do it together. If you have a supportive partner, that's wonderful. Make a birth plan together, because he or she will have to be there during the birth to be your advocate. So work the system. That's pretty much what I think you need to learn. And what's also really important, trust yourself. You can do it. Don't expect someone to take over from you. You have to do it, and you can. There's absolutely no reason why you can't deliver this baby safely. And be selfish. You're entitled to have your best possible birth. Make sure you get people around you who listen to your wishes and who'll help you carrying them out. And if there's not a supportive partner who really understands how to work the system, a doula can also be a great option. But make sure that you get what you need. And even though many countries are very different in their birth systems, I think there's one thing that almost every country has. They have caregivers that really care. Most caregivers really want you to have your best possible birth experience. So make sure that you talk to them. And if you don't like them, if you feel they don't care enough, find a caregiver who really, truly does care. And just remember, it's in the end, it's your body, it's your birth, and it's your baby. Thank you very much.